So my name's Emily Ward and I'm marketing manager here at Quotacom, and I'm a co-lead for the Brighton chapter alongside Rose Tighe and Endacott. So I'm going to hand it over to Lavinia in a moment to officially introduce Women in Blockchain Talks. But what I can say is that we've been a proud member of Women in Blockchain Talks for over a year now. And as an executive search firm in the digital sphere, thank you. We understand how important it is to drive diversity in these emerging technologies such as blockchain, Web3, AI, and such. So we've dedicated our expertise in executive search to help support Women in Blockchain Talks and its members with career advice and market insights. We're also diversity partners with other organisations such as Women in Data, Women in AI, and the Alan Turing Institute. So you will be hearing from our very own CEO, John Taylor, on the panel discussion later. But without further ado, I will now pass it to the CEO and founder of Women in Blockchain Talks to introduce her amazing organisation.
Thank you so much. Okay, so that's me. All right, so what I am going to do right now, I'm going to give more of an introduction about Women in Blockchain Talks, but ultimately we started 4 years ago, and we have been expanding, and basically we started September 29, and then we all know what happened at the beginning of 2020, and what happened was COVID kicked in, and then we went online, and by going online was able to expand globally, expand our reach, and then the pandemic died down and then came back, and then off the back of that, we have just been creating a safe, secure, and supportive space for people, anyone, men, women, binaries, by genders, to come into a space to learn, to connect, to create, to converse. And off the back of that, we launched global chapters. And so really pleased and happy and excited to be here in Brighton. I love Brighton. Who doesn't love Brighton, really and truly? And to have our first global chapter down in the south. And when I say down in the south, I mean further down than London. So I would just like to introduce our Brighton Global Chapter leaders. And like I said, I will tell you more about Women in Blockchain Talks in a moment, but today is really about our leaders. We have a fantastic community of international people, and our people make our communities, our people make society. But it's all about tribes, right? Your vibe is your tribe, right? So I am fortunate enough to have attracted some great people in my community. One of them happens to be sitting right there. Claire, say hello to everyone. And of course, Rose Emily Cornell. So as you already know, Emily Ward is the marketing manager director at Quotacom. We got Rose Tighe. She is an advocate, leader, trailblazer in the world of AI and product management. So if you want to know anything about products, talk to this lady. And she is the co-lead. And then I'm really pleased and excited to be walking my talk. I always say Women in Blockchain Talks is open to all genders. And for the first time, we have our first male co-lead. So give it up for Cornell, because it's not always easy being the first. Now, some people will be like, why are you making a big thing about gender? Just look at the numbers. There are not enough women in the tech space. And this is an emerging tech space. Blockchain AI. We need women to be in it, leading, creating, building. You know, we're not just consumers. And there is enough data out there that shows that, unfortunately, many things have been created and innovated around the male sphere, the male vision. And just looking at it from the architecture of toilets, you know, and queuing, and also seat belts. So, you know, when I talk about gender diversity, it's not about removing men or reducing men or negating men. It's about adding to the conversation or ensuring that the conversation is diverse and it's inclusive. And because of that, you know, if we're celebrating the first woman, I think it's also important to celebrate the first man, because it's not always easy to be the first. And I'm very, proud and happy to have Cornell. A lot of these people here, I've been talking to, connecting, growing the relationships with for over a year, over 2 years. So these communities are not just built from a one-off connection. They're built through networking, talking, connecting, sharing, authenticity. And that is exactly what you will find with Women in Blockchain Talks. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Cornell, who's going to do a short introduction on blockchain, and then we will continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Lavinia. It's a pleasure to be here. This is actually going to be kind of like my first moderation and panel, so please excuse me for any hiccups that may happen. But without further ado, I'd love to be able to introduce blockchain to everyone here. So I'm going to ask a question. Who here has heard of blockchain? Raise your hands up, please. Most of you. I suppose that's why you're interested in blockchain. That's why you're here. But who knows how it works intrinsically, in and out, what kind of value it can bring? Are you here to learn, or are you here to network? So if you know about blockchain, please raise your hands. Well, a lot less. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So I suppose I will begin by talking a little bit about and how I got into the space in itself. A little bit about myself. Thank you so much for the introduction, Lavinia. I used to actually work in AI. So back in 2019, I was working for a company over out in Taiwan, which develops self-driving vehicles, smart cameras, and a whole lot of other really cool tech. But back then, it wasn't as exciting as it is today. To be honest with you, AI it seemed as though it was in its trial, and it wasn't picking up from then. There wasn't that many developments happening at the time, and the use case were only spoken about in a future sense rather than the present. So I got a little bit bored, and I heard about this thing called blockchain. I heard about blockchain being developed. There was a lot of hype around it. There were things coming out such as NFTs. I'm not going to digress too much. I'm not going to jump into all the sub areas of blockchain. But I'll talk about the true value of a blockchain in itself and what it means and what it represents and the kind of industries that it can basically shift around. So yeah, I've heard about blockchain, Bitcoin in particular. I done my first really poor investments, which I've lost a lot of money on. But through those investments, I managed to realize that there's so much more to it than being able to actually gain capital, because you get involved in the communities, you try and learn something about it. It's like, okay, you just don't want to splash your money in random areas, right? And what I've discovered was that this is actually almost like a political movement. It's against a lot of the structures that have been built in for however many 100 years now. And Bitcoin in itself is a movement against the financial system that currently exists and the banks in particular. So it's a way of reforming the financial system that currently exists. The blockchain works in a way whereby it essentially eliminates the middleman. It eliminates the middleman, and in this instance, Bitcoin eliminated the banks. And it done so, it works in like a distributed ledger. So it's like an open book of transactions, which enables for people to transact between one another. So two individuals can send money directly to one another. It's cheaper, not in an instance where you're trying to send it to your friend who's in the same country than you, because I mean, we can use banking payments for that. Doesn't cost us anything. But if you're trying to send large sums abroad internationally, then it becomes a lot cheaper in that instance in itself. But the other use cases of it, of course, are the fact that it's transparent and it's secure. We all know what happened in 2009. Global recession, massive crash. The Lehman Bank brothers? Am I saying this right? Lehman, yeah, Lehman. So obviously they collapsed, and which caused the global recession. Why? Because they mismanaged people's funds. There was a bank run, and there was so much more to it than that, which I won't care to explain. But in other words, what does it mean? We can't always rely on middle people to look after our finances, our assets, our data. Companies like Google, companies like Amazon, there's been multiple breaches where data has been stolen, hacked, shared. And we just don't know what happens to our data whenever we sign up, especially in areas like healthcare. Well, healthcare is a massive one, isn't it? Healthcare is huge. We rely so much on the NHS and many other healthcare providers. We give them our most secret and valuable information, and we don't know what happens behind closed doors. The reality is that a lot of leaks have happened, and there has been a lot of companies which have basically bought out third-party data and information, which has then been spread around. I mean, technically, if you look at it, you're probably just a number among many, but it still is attached to you as an individual. So what does blockchain do? It prevents that. It enables ownership over your own data, especially when it comes to private blockchains. So if you're exchanging data on a private blockchain, well, only the people who have access to that data are the people within that blockchain network. So the areas that it can help, the areas that it can benefit: healthcare, which you briefly touched upon. If you wish to sell your data, well, then now you can using blockchain. You'll be able to monetize your own data and sell it to third-party companies if you wish to, or maybe you wish to keep it private and actually see who it's being transacted between. Logistics. It will be phenomenal for logistics. Why? Because there is so many products and materials which either go missing or disappear or are unaccounted for when it comes to the global economy that we currently live in. So if you're buying something from China, if your package goes missing, you have no idea where it went missing. But on the blockchain, if it's being accounted for every single step of the way, well, then you're able to have real live insight into where it is at what current time, and no one has to check off on it. Well, potentially maybe someone would. So there could be faults in it, but there's always room for growth. Another area is, of course, finance, and it's reforming the way we do finance with one another. We do not have to rely on banks, which could go bust or could misuse our data, and also due to fractional reserves. Which is a horrible kind of mechanism in its own right. We know that how many Bitcoins are available, and the maths behind it. If anyone cares to look at the maths behind the Bitcoin, well, they'll know that there's only 21 million available, roughly. And so, yeah, there's a lot of use cases, and I hope I've been able to explain some things. Sorry, I'm new to this, but. If anyone's any questions, please raise your hands right now. I'll be more than happy to answer them. I've kind of whizzed through it because I've been given a short amount of time for the introductions. But all in all, there's a lot of potential. There's a lot of value. When I compare blockchain to AI has been worked on since the 1980s. It's had roughly between 20 to 40 years over of experimentation, investment, development, and only recently with ChatGPT, which is not actually so much of a novelty because massive machine learning programs have been in existence for quite some time now, by the way, it's hit the market and everyone's talking about AI and everyone's like super excited about it. Blockchain has a long way to go. There's still so much development to happen before it hits your, local supplier or your local warehouse or your, local hospital. But many companies are already experimenting with it. IBM, Microsoft, even Google, they're hiring within this industry. They're experimenting, they're researching, they're investing. It's a good time to become involved and see how it can potentially impact your area, your industry, and yourself as an individual, so that you can take back ownership over your own data, your own finances, and just general assets in the digital space. Thank you. Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, well. All right. So just to let you know that we are having a panel session, and the panel session is going to start in a moment. We've still got a few more introductions and to give, because of course this event could not happen without the sponsorship of Silicon Brighton. So whoop, 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 Silicon Brighton over there, sir. Quotacom, of course. Whoop, 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 whoop. And BitGet, who are not in the house, but they are probably watching online. So, whoop, 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 whoop. So just to let you know, this is coming and it's going to be great. So hold on tight. So I'm now going to pass this over to Rose, who's going to talk about Silicon Brighton. Grace? Oh, okay, fine.
Thank you. Really excited to be here. For those of you who don't know me, because there are quite lots of new faces, I'm Grace and I'm the co-founder of Silicon Brighton. Our mission and our purpose, our why, is basically to put Brighton on the map as a world-class technology hub for investment and for talent. And we do that by supporting the local meetup community. So lots of groups, very much like Women in Blockchain Talks, for people to come together for free, to upskill, to learn, to listen, to meet new people, make friends, contacts, all that kind of good stuff that happens when you get a load of people in a room together talking. So there's lots of other groups, lots of other different events that are happening all around the tech, digital and creative sphere. So this is just a bit of a visual representation of all the different ones that we support. And there is an AI group as well. There's been a lot of chat about AI, and I'm sure it will come, more will come as well. And then all of the events are free to join. They're available to people at all levels. So curious about a specific area, want to learn more, specialist in it. Everyone is welcome. And they're all hybrid as well. So as much like this one, they're all live streamed as well, recorded and uploaded to YouTube. So the idea behind all of this is that it makes these events as accessible as possible for people coming into the industry and into this space today. Woo! I love weeping, I love cheers. So I'm really glad Lavinia's a fan as well. A massive thank you to our supporters. So these are local businesses who basically give us money every month to allow the support that we deliver to the meetup groups to be free. So a massive thank you to all of those businesses. Another whoop. Let's just whoop for it. Like a whoop per slide would be absolutely amazing and really help my ego. Silicon Brighton needs you. If you want to actively get involved in organising a group, you might have an idea for a talk. Maybe you want to volunteer and help host the events, or perhaps you know of a business who might want to support or sponsor Silicon Brighton. Please let me know, get in touch, or tell your employers, your friends, anyone at all. Much like Lavinia has said as well, we're very much about proactively representing underrepresented groups as well. It is a massively, I would say, undiverse industry historically, but we're doing as much as we can to change this. So if we can all do our bit to tell other people, to put them forward for talks, for ideas, anything like that, then hopefully we'll make that change one step at a time. And that kind of fits into our values as well. I won't read those out, but this is what we stand for. And every single person that we work with, partner with, support, and who does things for us as well, we really want to make sure that everyone aligns with those values. You can follow us on socials. We're on all the usual socials, basically. That's them there. And we've got a really active Slack community as well. So there is a really strong online community away from the events if you do want to connect with people or just carry on the conversation online in between. And that's me, Grace. Get in touch or just speak to me or tell someone if you want to find out more or have any sort of conversation. I'm here. So thank you.
Oh, sorry. Hey, you know what? I think it's really important to say it's important that we share, right? So there's more, I think there's more men in this room than there are women, which is not a problem. Love it. We are all human beings at the end of the day. But, you know, if you're coming to these sort of events, tell someone in your, if you go to these events, have self-awareness to see, you know, who's in the room, and then maybe think about who can I bring next? Who can I introduce to the space? I think there's a level of proactiveness that is required if you want to create change, if it's important to you, if you choose to see it, because sometimes people just don't see it because they don't need to see it. And it's only when the conversation is brought up that they're like, oh, I never really thought about it from that point of view, you know? So if there's one thing you can, I hope there's many things you'll take away from this evening, but if that's one thing you can take away, I would be grateful. You know, be self-aware, think about who's in the room and who you can invite into into the conversation. And with that being said, one of the things that Grace and I did touch upon, and that, you know, she said that she's happy while we're collaborating in this way, is because, you know, Brighton is a hub and ultimately she wants to expand, you know. So what other communities are you aware of that could be a good fit for what Grace is doing? It doesn't have to stay local. It, you know, I always say GSB, global small business. If you're online, you're a global small business. So it's always something to think about. All right, so I'm mindful of time. So I'm just going to touch on BitGet. Sorry, who's our sponsor? One of our sponsors. So let me tell you about them. Sorry, I didn't organize myself properly. Right, so I'm going to read this because I am not a representative of BitGet, and they are based out in Dubai, Ireland, and other parts of the world. So, okay, so they were established in 2018. BitGet is the world's leading crypto exchange and Web3 company, serving over 20 million users in 100 countries and regions. The BitGet exchange is committed to helping users trade smarter with its pioneering copy trading feature and other trading solutions. Formerly known as BitKeep, BitGet Wallet is a world-class multi-chain crypto wallet that offers an array of Web3 features, including wallet, swap, NFT marketplace, dApp browsers, dApp is decentralized application, and more. BitGet inspires individuals to embrace a crypto through collaborations with credible partners, including legendary footballer Lionel Messi and official esport events organizer PGL. So there's a QR code if you want to learn more. So BitGet was founded with a steadfast belief in being the last 10% who remain committed even in the face of adversity. With a background in traditional finance, BitGet's founding team discovered blockchain technology in 2015. In 2018, they became intrigued by cryptocurrency after studying the Bitcoin white paper and Ethereum ecosystem. They believe that cryptocurrency would play an important role in the future and even benefit the unbanked. However, the market crash chased away most speculators, and less than 10% of people choose to stick to their convictions and rebuild. BitGet was then officially founded in the same year. Born in a bear market, BitGet insists on putting users first, focusing on product innovation and advocating long-term prospects with a spirit of earnestness. The company aims to inspire people to embrace crypto and improve the way they trade one at a time. It's important to say as well that they just announced at Davos that they have launched an initiative called Blockchain for Her, and they've put 10 million behind that. And I am one of their ambassadors. So I'm really excited about that. Thank you. So without further ado, I should say it's Women in Blockchain Talks is one of their ambassadors rather than me, myself, and I, even though I am, you know, Women in Blockchain Talks, with the amazing Amala as well. We've got to give Amala her flowers. So what does Women in Blockchain Talks stand for? We stand for diversity. And not just gender diversity, diversity in every sense of the way, but we lead with gender diversity, advocacy of blockchain technology, and also consumer awareness and consumer safety. This is super important to me. Reason being is back in 2022, 2 of my NFTs were stolen from my wallet. I decided to take it to the High Courts of England and Wales. And in doing so, I was granted the world's first ever proprietary NFT order, which basically states that the person who stole my NFTs could not sell it on. In doing so, I set case law. That case law is now used around the world as a way to help others reclaim their NFTs. So that is, thank you. Thank you. So that's one of the things that I have done to create legacy and to walk my talk again in regards to trying to create consumer safety and awareness in the space. So we're all about education, all about training and networking. One of the things that we did is we created a campaign called Craft Your Own Future in Blockchain, because, you know, it can be quite overwhelming if you're not from the tech space or you're not a software developer or anything like that. And also sometimes I think that you have to make it kind of fun and engaging. It can't just be all boring words and just like a certain image. Let's bring our own flavor to the table. So Craft Your Own Future in Blockchain is all about discovering your next steps in your blockchain journey. And in it, you can be a diversity Delilah, career pivoting Charlie, newbie Naomi, skeptic Sam, or a technophobe Teresa. So again, please click the QR code to take the test. Now, again, I always like to walk my talk as best as I can. And so one of the things that we did is that when we created it, yes, we have images of women because we're all about leading with women, but career pivoting Charlie, skeptic Sam are both names that are non-binary. So hopefully just by doing that little thing, it can make someone feel like they belong in this community as well. And then, as I touched upon, we have global chapters. So we just recently opened in Africa, Zimbabwe. We have a global chapter in Dubai. We have chapters opening in USA. We have chapters in Barcelona, Berlin, Warsaw, Manchester, Brighton. Woo, 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 woo. And we are opening up Birmingham tomorrow. So we leave tonight, go home, and then we're off to Birmingham tomorrow. So we're busy because we are on a mission and there's a lot of work to be done. All right, so without further ado, I am now going to hand the mic back over to Emily. Thank you very much.
Hey, thanks so much, Lavinia. So I'm going to introduce the panel discussion, which is Blockchain Unleashed. So firstly, I'm going to introduce to the stage our first male co-lead, as Lavinia said earlier, Endacott, who is also director of WeConnect, and he will also be moderating the panel today. So I'm now going to welcome to the stage Rose Tighe, another of our Brighton co-chapter leads, who is an expert in innovation, having previously worked as product leader at Sky and then the leadership team at Sky Labs. Rose is now working with not only Women in Blockchain Talks, but also the Brighton AI Group. So next we have Steve Endacott, who is currently chairman for the company Neural River, which is an AI incubator helping businesses harness the potential of AI. So Steve has an entrepreneurial background covering the travel and EV industries. Okay, so I'll now welcome Quotacom's very own founder and CEO, John Taylor, to the stage. So John has over 18 years experience in the executive search industry and is now recognized as an industry leader. He's also a trusted advisor to a number of renowned think tanks and not-for-profits, including Women in AI and Women in Data. And last but not least, Lavinia Osbourne, CEO of Women in Blockchain Talks.
Thank you very much. I'm actually going to leave it to these. Is that okay if I...
There's no more seats.
Oh, sure, sorry.
I hope everyone's ready. Thank you so much for the introductions, Emily. They're absolutely fantastic. I'd love for everyone to be able to get in deeper into what they do. Why do they do it? And why do they love it? So begin with you, Rose, considering you're closest to me. Name, background, what excites you the most about what you do?
I guess I'm fundamentally a product person. I've been in creating digital products, and before that, sort of telecoms propositions for a couple of decades, which makes me very old. And so I've always been excited around about new technologies. I think I'm a real optimist about these. So always been really interested in how new technologies are going to open up new opportunities. And so I've been through lots of different waves, if you like, of technology. And this one, we've got so many different types of shifts going on at the same time. It's absolutely fascinating. And I think I just like a bit of disruption, quite frankly. And I don't think we've been in a more disruptive and disrupted period of tech innovation. And when you look at also what's happening politically and socially, economically, like this is the moment. And yeah, it's important for everybody to be able to get involved in those shifts and that people aren't left behind. Thanks, Lavinia.
Feedback's good.
Hello. Well, firstly, thank you everyone for coming and joining us here. And thanks for Lavinia and the team for organising. Why do I love what I do? So I'm basically a people person, not actually a techie at all. In fact, far from it. I get excited about tech. I'm not particularly good at using it. But I think what interests me most about the industry we work in is that it creates opportunities and it creates futures for people. And I think that the landscape is evolving so rapidly. I mean, I think about when I first started my career in recruitment, and I think about the tools that we had and the tech that we had at our disposal, and I look at what we have now. And I think how this market's going to evolve moving forward, and you know that journey excites me, and I think the opportunities that tech is creating is probably the thing that I'm most excited about. And I think I just love my job. I love matching people with people, because to be honest with you, there's not a lot of tech that needs to be involved in there. It's all about the people. It's all about community. So that's why I love my job, I think.
Okay, Steve Endacott. Unusual combination. I spent half my life in corporate life. Very boring, but made loads of money from it. Used to run my travel, big tour operator. Went rogue in 2003, did my own businesses based down in Brighton. So I had a transfer business called Holiday Taxis. I had an insurance business called Rock Insurance, and got very, very lucky that I sold them before the pandemic. So supposedly retired, but I'm rubbish at being retired. So I'm now an active investor in about 20 different businesses. But most interestingly tonight, backed one of my sons, the middle son, the one I had the least relationship with because he didn't play sport and didn't do anything, was the geek. And he blew me away with AI about 3 years ago. And I went, this is so backable. What are we going to do? And he recruited a friend of his, which was even more backable. But they had one idea. And I went, not sure I like one idea in AI. That's all your eggs in one basket. Let's create an incubator where we can bring young talent in, match it with grey hair, people built business, people who've done it before. Because if you want to innovate, it's not just about the technology, it's about how you put it into a business. So we created Neural River. I'm very proud to announce our first spin-off is going live tomorrow, which is Neural Voice, which is a vocal front end to ChatGPT. So you can now talk to it conversationally, get the output, and you don't even have to type a finger. That is going to blow people away. It's going to change our industry, and it's disruption. I'm another one, loves disruption. Can you imagine being born at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution? That's where we're at. So I'm too old, but I'm willing to back the people who can change the world. And there's a massive change happening right now in AI, in blockchain, in loads of technologies. And we need to broaden who we work with. So I'm a great believer in diversity, but diversity has to start with education. It has to start with outreach. It should not be the point somebody's going for an interview. So that's where we need to put our efforts, and that's where we need to work. I'm Brighton, born and bred, so it's nice to be back here. I now live in Rochdale because my new wife told me I had to, but by God, it's a shithole compared with here. So it's lovely to be back. It's lovely to give something back to the community and try to help shape opinion in a very expanding area.
Thank you, Steve. Steve. And coming back around to Rose, perfect next question regarding disruption, right? So how do you envision the future of these technologies and for when they will become part of our daily lives? Do you have any concerns in regards to this disruption?
Well, I'm not going to start with the concerns bit because I'm an optimist.
Leave that for later.
Yeah, but I mean, on that point, it's interesting if you look at the work by Amy Webb, who runs the Future Today Institute. They've been tracking hundreds of different technology trends, and each year publish an amazing reports. The latest one will be coming out soon. And what they do each year is look at the optimistic scenarios and the pessimistic scenarios, and they're almost like two sides of the same coin. And then there's a sort of middle scenario, which is like if we're sort of lazy and go with the flow. So I think with all of these things, it could be either side of those coins, and it's for us to get involved and make sure that the optimistic scenarios happen. So I would like to think that there will be a couple of things that play out. If we're thinking about consumers in their day-to-day lives, there will be a whole bunch of stuff that's under the radar that you don't even notice is better. And that will just be because ecosystems of companies are working together and just making things more seamless, cheaper, sharing data. And then I would love that there were some really amazing things where you go, wow, this is amazing. Like the future of fandom and how you engage with the brands and the content that you love. There are so many amazing things. The future of healthcare. So in a world where we own our own data and all these different data sets can be safely combined, what does that look like? There are so many avenues where the optimistic scenario is going to leap us forward in decades, just within years, if we get it right. And actually, this is where the interplay of AI and blockchain starts to become interesting, because if we're safe and free to start sharing those data sets, then we really can leverage them with AI. So I'm the optimist. Obviously, there are concerns, and we sort of get dragged into talking about those a lot, but I'd like to focus on getting as many people engaged and knowledgeable enough to get involved and steer it towards the positive stuff.
Thank you.
Oh, that's a pass. It's dangerous. We're a very important part in the change. So why is it dangerous? Well, nuclear arms were controlled by countries that eventually did treaties. We're controlled by a capitalist society that's there to make money. That is a worry, and how we control that is a concern. But it will mean less boring jobs. It will mean more leisure time for everybody. But that in itself requires a change in our capitalist society, because you can't have the rich just getting richer and richer and richer and the poor getting poorer, poorer and poorer. And that's all happen unless we force change. So a lot of jobs, accountants, the middle class jobs are going. Accountants, you're gone. Lawyers, you've gone. Admin roles, probably gone. Customer services, in danger. So what do those people do? How do we share wealth around? For example, a 4-day week is a must. We've all got to work less to share the wealth around. If we don't, we've got a lovely society at the moment where we've got a balanced, this island is quite a balanced people. They don't want to stab you because they're too poor. I fear that if we don't deal with the issues and we don't give people jobs and we don't balance it out, we're going to have a poverty-stricken poor who's about there to stab you. That's the last thing we want, but that takes thought, that takes process. Is our government up to it? Not sure. The only way to make sure of that is to start leading with thought process to say, what are we going to do about this? What are we going to do about that? And that's a conversation we have to have starting now, because we're in a very dangerous time. Sorry to be pessimistic.
Okay, if I can just build on that a little bit. There are lots of discussions, to your point, I completely agree, around the risks for job destruction. And actually in a city like Brighton, where there are a lot of digital industries that were built up from the 90s and 2000s, that really is a risk for the local economy. What would be a really interesting thing to think about is whether the new business models that are enabled through this technology could actually be a source of growth, a driver of growth, because we can open up new economic opportunities that don't exist. So how we monetize our skills, the content that we produce, there are opportunities there through new business models if we can unlock them.
And to that point, I have no fear about the UK economy. Every large language module is in English. Is that right? No, it's not, but that's a fact. And the digitalization, the split acts and the calls in the world economy means that we're going to do great. No worried about that. But how does that happen, and how does that impact the rest of the world, and what are we going to do to balance it out?
Yeah, I mean, just on a sort of personal take on this, I think technology is definitely coming for a lot of people's jobs, and I think Steve's take on it in terms of, you know, how is that managed, and how is that sort of, you know, to a certain extent it does need to be policed, because capitalism to a certain extent does need to be policed, and I don't think there is a way of policing it. But I think that actually education is, you know, is fundamental and at grassroots level.
Can I ask a question?
Go.
You guys, well, I know
Yep.
you certainly are, were old enough to be around for the first .com bubble and the internet, and everyone was saying exactly the same things you're saying now.
No, they weren't.
They were about jobs, about jobs disappearing, etc. And but we now all, you know, it's Silicon Brighton. All the jobs that relate to all those industries and stuff are because of the internet, new technology. And I think that there'll be a lot of jobs appearing that we haven't even thought of yet.
And I fundamentally agree.
Yeah.
So Brighton, not the slightest issue. You've got a young, active, AI-orientated population, not the slightest issue. Rochdale, where I live, not the slightest chance.
Then my second point to make, so far it's all framed in about like the West. Blockchain is going to have a massive impact in Africa and Asia, where people can't get bank accounts. They have no way of entering into commerce, doing contract, trusted third party. And that's where the future. We've got a solution. Capitalism has raised more people out of poverty than any other system in the history of the world. Okay, we're privileged to moan about it, but we're all right. But the real big opportunity that where blockchain is going to transform people's lives is in the third world, or the global south, I should say now. Sorry, I showed my age. And I think that looking at it from like our little Western sort of privileged bubble, you can be pessimistic. Whereas I think if you're in Africa, Nigeria, Ghana, you're super excited. Anyway,
I just wanted to add to this conversation piece about regional and global. Okay, they're very distinctive, and you're absolutely right. But just because you have access to it, there are lots of people in this country who are what's the word? It's when you can't learn quickly. Illiterate. You're illiterate. They can't read. They can't write. And there has been many entrepreneurs who have actually risen up from those struggles to build businesses, as we're aware of. And just because you have access to something doesn't necessarily mean that you will utilize it. And yes, we are privileged because most large language models and this whole tech space is built in English, because English is the business language of the world. However, this is one of the reasons why, again, I do what I do in regards to going to different countries. But one of the things I realized as I was expanding globally was like, what about the regions in the UK? Because as you touched upon, there are many places in the UK that are below poverty. They are struggling, and there's not enough investments going to those places. And we talked about this in the summer. It's an ongoing issue. It's not going to be fixed with one or two conversations, but I think that it has to be continuously highlighted. And also one of that solution, as the young man over there said, the technology is a solution, but it's also going to have an effect. And that effect is that, we're already seeing on the high streets how many shops are being abandoned, how many shops are on the high streets now. And that is technology, the impact of technology. So we have to think about us being in the so-called wealthy West. How can we impact positive change, not just globally, but also regionally here in the UK? And I think that our minds need to be a bit more, it's that self-awareness again. And it goes back to what you were saying about advocacy and education and outreach. And don't just think about this community, because what happens in this community affects that community over there, and what happens in that community will affect this community. So we have to have a very kind of mindful way of thinking when it comes to this new technology and how it is shared. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Love all these points. To build on that, over in East Brighton, some of the highest levels of deprivation in the country, and it's literally on the doorstep. And when you look at digital exclusion there, with all of the resources that are around here, it really sort of draws into focus as this rocket ship is taking off. How do you keep everybody on board?
To spin off on that, has anyone here watched WALL-E? Raise your hands, please. I'd love to be able to see who watched WALL-E here. The animated movie, right? Does anyone foresee the destruction of jobs turning over into a sci-fi sort of area of WALL-E, whereby people have the jobs replaced and end up in a spot where AI, robotics, potentially maybe even blockchain, come in par together, that they replace all areas of the human existence, and we become, lazy and sort of replaced. Does anyone look at it that way, or do we just say?
I think the other thing that and it seems really, it seems sort of counterintuitive, but we're facing a huge demographic time bomb. So jobs may be disappearing, but the people coming through able to do jobs is also massively diminishing as well. So it may well be that there will be less jobs to do, but there's going to be a lot less people around to do the jobs. My business is involved in hospitality across Europe, Middle East, etc., and across the whole of Europe. After the pandemic, all the big chains and hotels I deal with, they just can't recruit. They're down 50% on headcount. They just can't recruit people anymore. So we need AI to automate jobs, a lot of job functions, hopefully the boring bits, because there's less people around to do them. You know, everyone's getting old, and the kids coming through.
Isn't that the key point?
Yeah.
He wants to do shit boring jobs.
Exactly. Yeah.
So replace them.
Yeah.
Let's all have more leisure time. If you look at the growth of humanity, nobody's ever complained about having more time to actually spend with your family and enjoy your life.
Yeah.
So let's do that. But it will require some governmental action to say, look, we're all working 3 or 4 days. Yeah. Because otherwise, those who work 7 days have all the money, and those who can't get a job have nothing. That's what we have to avoid. So I see a lot of good things coming. I see a lot of boring jobs going. Oh, I was an accountant. I didn't want to be an accountant. Bloody boring. Right? So if you can replace that and get that done by machine, what's wrong with that? I'm not sure all lawyers enjoy their jobs. All they enjoy is the money that comes through it. So if we can replace the jobs that actually aren't that creative and let our brains be creative and have more leisure time, that's not a bad outcome for humanity.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen huge advancements in AI in my industry, and people often say, you know, recruiters are going to be out of jobs in however long, which I don't believe that, because the reality is that, you know, person to person is still the people we're going to send out on interview are still going to be going out on interview, right? And they're still going to speak to people, and they're still going to sit in front of people, and there's probably still, well, maybe not turn up to the place they're going to work. But what I think's interesting is even in the last 2 years, where we've integrated, I don't know, probably 20, maybe 30 tools that are AI orientated into our workflows, we're still busy. We're still busy doing what it's allowed us to do is give us more time to do the things that we want to be doing, and take, you know, and the things that are important and the things that actually create value to candidates and clients. And I'm talking about my industry, but we can apply this to any other industry. It doesn't mean you're just going to work less. It means you're going to do more of the things that, you know, every industry will still exist, but you'll do more of the things that are important and create value. That's the way I see it.
Thank you, John. Oh, we've got 2 questions over there. Yeah.
Sorry, everyone. We are going to have time for questions at the end of the panel, so if you leave them to them, that will be great.
No, do it when you like.
Okay, to back you up on this, we're going to have a lot more time to grow spiritually, hopefully, and spend more time with together. So on the positive side note. Anyway, moving on to the third question. How can we encourage more diversity and participation from underrepresented groups in blockchain and AI? And also, can we use this technology to support diversity in other areas aside from AI and blockchain? Where's Lavinia? She's not even here anymore. No. Oh, she's right there. Sorry, I lost you there for a second. I thought she'd be the best person to answer this question to begin with, and then we'll continue with Rose and go around the panel.
Hello. So the question is, how does these technologies support diversity?
Yes, in AI and blockchain, and how we can essentially utilize it to help maximize underrepresented groups, bring them over into the industry.
Well, ultimately, diversity, look at all the people in this room, it's quite a diverse space. Diversity exists. It's just a question of how inclusive we are as individuals, as corporations, as entities to embrace it. Now, Steve said a great point. Diversity and inclusivity doesn't start at the recruitment table. It starts way before. You know, I'm a true believer in building networks. I'm a true believer in traveling, in connecting with others. I generally walk into a room and I'm the only person who looks like me, and it's fine. I embrace it. But I know by embracing it, I also am a role model, so to speak, to people who see me and think, oh, wow, she's not just in the audience, she's actually at the front, she's leading, that's her business, she's doing this. And so it's very important that representation matters. So for me, it doesn't matter if it's blockchain or it's AI or it's emerging tech, it's just about stepping into your power and being present, you know, and being visible, I think, and using our voices to not just focus on our own agenda, but on a, you know, dare I say, global agenda. And that global agenda is just ultimately about diversity and inclusion. And that comes with self-awareness. So for me, AI and blockchain, what I love about blockchain and why I came into it is because I felt it gave me, for the first time in my life, I felt like, and sometimes we put mental blocks on ourselves ultimately, but I felt like there wasn't a gatekeeper stopping me from building in this space. And I felt like everybody was really open and really more accepting. And there was a feeling of equity, you know. Now, the reality of that, it is, but as compliance and regulation comes in, for the good and the bad, there's an element of control, but there's also an element of protection that is required. What I find is that the gatekeeping is coming slowly but surely into the space. However, there are still ways to promote and advocate for the egalitarian values that blockchain and emerging tech stands for. So it's just up to us to be the voices, not to just watch and wait for someone else to be, but to be it, be visible and walk your talk ultimately. Thank you. That's my thoughts. Woohoo.
Rose, would you like to take up?
Yeah, what she said. The reality is, I mean, I remember going along to one of the first Women in Blockchain Talks event a couple of years ago, and what really helped me understand, I mean, I'm not technical, I can't code, but I'm dangerous enough with technology that, you know, I've been around it for many years. What really blew me away was the storytelling. So there were a lot of female entrepreneurs who were building solutions on blockchain in a really diverse set of use cases. Actually hearing those stories, you're like, oh, I get it. And oh my God, that is genuinely revolutionary. So I think actually the storytelling is a really important part of it. But I think as a product person, in technology, we've been grappling with this diversity issue. How do you get the gender balance right? And I've seen all the initiatives that particularly large corporates are doing. And it's great. But I think what I would like to emphasize is that we don't need women to necessarily be going off for 3 or 4 years and learning the technology. There are many more avenues into technology, and product is a brilliant one. Because you are making the decisions on the features that are going to go into these products. There isn't a more powerful position, and it doesn't need you to be a technologist. And I think my frustration, I've seen so many job specs over the last few years where companies are hiring roles and they've got that line in there, needs to have experience of, insert exactly their business. And I'm sorry, but a lot of the certainly crypto related solutions, they're really poor user experience. That's why adoption is low. You really need people who've been working in the consumer space for a long time. They've got the skills. You've got the technologists. You don't need that. And by saying that you're only drawing from a pool that is already not representative, you're reinforcing the problem. So open your doors and experiment a little. You need other people's skills, and being a technologist is not the only way in.
Thank you so much. Well, and that's a wrap. So moving forward, this one's a little bit slightly more technical, and it'll apply to anyone who knows how to answer in regards to the challenges that exist surrounding potential issues when it comes to AI algorithms. Recently, Gemini, if that's correct, the Google one, has been held as extremely left, sort of. I don't want to put any names on it because I might offend some people. But in other words, it was essentially putting in a lot of color, a little bit too much color into into its responses, and even though the instructions was very clear, very specific. And so how do we essentially mitigate these challenges when it comes to AI algorithms? Because of course, the companies that create the AI algorithms are still very much centralized. They still have a lot of authority in terms of the machine learning models. And so how do we come around mitigating bias in AI algorithms? That is the question.
Yeah, I'm happy to start on this one. A very short answer. The reality is we need to make sure that the people who are creating the technology don't have bias. Now, that in itself is near on impossible. So, how do you do that? Well, what I guess the way in which businesses are trying to tackle this, and certainly the way that we see that businesses are trying to tackle it, is creating the most diverse set of thoughts amongst the engineers or the product managers or the whoever it is that's building the technology, so that fundamentally you're trying to eliminate bias by virtue of critical mass of different sort of thought processes and beliefs and all of those sorts of things. So I don't think there's a way of doing it personally, because it does rely on the people who are creating the technology. But one way of tackling it is effectively to diversify the pool of people who are building the technology.
I'm less optimistic on that one. The biggest problem with large language models is a black box. We don't know what the algorithms are. They don't tell us. So we can check for accuracy, but we've also got to start checking for bias. The only clear opportunity for me is if you look at ChatGPT, the latest release, you can put 300 pages of your own content ahead of that to say, this is what I want you to refer to before you go off to ChatGPT. So there is ways of looking and making sure your business is not showing bias by the content that you put in as that business. But realistically, you've got to look at the outputs to say, is it biased? Because the machine's doing it, and there's no way of actually saying to the machine, don't be biased. It's just a hidden. It's going to be an issue. It's going to be a long-standing issue that we have to work around, because it's the nature of large language models. Yeah, you put shit in, you get shit out.
In terms of
clearly someone put in bias in the Google.
Hang on, there's bias on the internet.
It's trained on like everything that is on the internet, and it's a mix of everything. So it just learns from
Tonight, I'll give you my email address and see how many pictures of black Nazi soldiers you can find that have been generated by AI. and I'll give you a price for each one you do.
So Mary, would you like to, because Mary, you might want to explain what you're working on at the moment.
Oh yeah, I'm working on improving systems to identify and detect propaganda in English and Arabic texts. And so yeah, I'm working improving these kind of systems to identify propaganda in English and Arabic texts. And when it comes to bias, inclusion, and diversity, my goodness. And I was listening the other day about the Gemini and the kind of photos that it generated. And I think one of the main problems, because I keep thinking about this, is that the concept of inclusion and diversity that those engineers are really adopting. Because sometimes when we're trying to be inclusive and diverse, we have to exclude someone to not to offend the rest. But that's why Gemini really, I don't know, maybe that's the reason, maybe it's not, generated this kind of like a Viking. They said, like, I need a food for a Viking, and it's a black person. But in reality, it's not a black person. But in their endeavor to not to be biased towards a certain race or to be racist, this is how the algorithm was like designed or built. So I think it's mainly we need to reconsider our concept of inclusion and diversity to include everyone and not to include people whom we're afraid to offend or be biased to, but again, be aware of the truth of the facts.
No, I agree with everything you're saying. What Chris pointing out is that the reason that Google's model output these ridiculous photos isn't because it from data it read on the internet, because what it output is not available on the internet. It got output because people, the engineers, thought, you know, in their endeavors to be doing good, had an unintended consequence.
Yeah, and
the
inclusive, they became exclusive.
Yeah, so the output, you might have a part of the algorithm which is a black box that people don't know what's going on inside it, but then before it reaches us, there are filters that are purely man-made and controlled, and that's why we've just seen what we've seen, and the Google engineers will be fixing that.
Okay, I just want to add to the question or the answer. So one of the key things that is going to change things is policymakers. There's a report that just came out from Stanford University, and what they found is that a lot of the reports that are coming out from policymakers around the world, you're talking about AI and mitigation. And so we already have the AI EU Act that recently came out at the end of last year. And so one of the things they talk about is governing and governance, prohibited practices. So ensuring that the LMM or the generative AI is not doesn't have an output that would obviously be misogynistic or racism. And already there is a case in America where an insurer or an insurance company has gone after a third-party company in regards to their output, because obviously a lot of the output that is out there in regards to Gen AI is open source, and as you touched upon, open source is going to have biases. So with all of these policies that are going to be coming through in regards to regulation and compliance, companies are going to have to be more stringent about the quality of the data they're using, the data that they're inputting, so that the data that is output is less biased, or there is some sort of mitigation or something around it. So I know you want to say something. So off the back of me saying this, please, everyone, can you just wait to the end to add your input? There will be a moment for questions and answers. Appreciate the respect. Thank you so much. Go ahead, Steve.
Okay. I just think we've got to respect it's an infant. Do you expect an infant to be perfect when it's born? So we've got to have a little bit more patience that we're showing in the marketplace at the moment, and holding up Google and saying, you're bad. There's a lot of things that Google are doing a lot worse than that. For example, stop them listening to me on my phones. That should be banned. Yeah, political parties should be banned from using AI to target, to influence people. Obvious. So there's a whole set of things that we should be thinking about and we should be doing now that just says, what could this be abused for? Yeah, for example, my business is doing vocal AI. So we're literally talking to the internet. One of the things we've banned is having our own voices, because just think of the crime you can do with that. if you can ring up somebody's bank and say, oh, it's me, give me more of my money. Yeah, this is the sort of thing we just got to think about and say, right, how do we stop AI from doing bad? What are the policies? But the problem is, at the moment, we've got a government talks about being the leaders of regulation and have had meetings. I haven't seen any output. Have you?
Nope. Thank you so much to everyone who contributed some input to that. That was a some really good answers. This one's going to be aimed at all the young entrepreneurs in here, or anyone with a business idea who might be considering maybe starting their own journey within blockchain or AI. And so, to begin with, Rose, what advice do you have for starting a blockchain or AI company?
Oh, it's the oldest advice in the book. It's not to do with the technology. It's to do with finding valuable problems to solve, validating those, and then using the individual superpowers of the technology in the most useful way. It's interesting, having been in product for a long time, what you see is fundamental human needs don't really change. So the need to be entertained or to socialize, to communicate, to listen to music, those things don't change over time, but the ways that you can satisfy those human needs do change with all the new technology enablers. So as long as you start with the needs and validating those as quickly as possible and using a really hypothesis-driven approach, then that will set you on the right path.
I'm going to disagree. I'm an ardent investor, and the idea is very, very important. The management team is more important because no idea ever survives the first skirmish of war. So you've got to look at, is it a good idea? Is it a good user case? Is this management team capable of delivering that, but also dealing with the obstacles that come in its way? So when we launched Neural River, the key thing we were saying is, I don't know which bet is going to win. So I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket. I want 10. So I tasked the team with coming up with 10 ideas. And the biggest discipline is not to dive on the first idea that looks good. So it's a really hard thing to do. And then the second thing I'd say is you've got to understand the new IP rules. So intellectual property rights. So in the past, people value a business by what's the IP, how much consumers you got, how much profit you're making. The problem in the new world is you will never own the IP because the IP of AI will be based on the large language models of OpenAI, Google, etc. And I regard it like an engine of the car. So you've got to build the car around the engine, which is the user case and how you put it into business. Who's the driver? What's the speed? How many wheels? What's the brake pressure? Yeah. But there's one rule. Somebody else can build the same car. So you've got to get to market faster than anybody else. So therefore, we only really encourage what we call B2B2C businesses, where we don't want to create a brand. It takes too long. We want to go into a business. It's already got customers. It can already get it to market. So we get out there and get customers before somebody nicks our idea. Because the bigger companies will be watching all these ideas and go, that's a good one. We can replicate it. So the rules of starting your business, the rules of how you gain investment, the rules about how you get in there and out are changing. And you just got to look at the logic of what's the rules, what am I doing, how am I going to achieve it? So speed to market, fundamental. You can't get speed to market, give up, somebody will copy you and do it better.
Okay, so I'll add to that. There's a couple of points there. I think particularly in the blockchain Web3 space, one of the key things that we're aware of, and I'm definitely aware of, is community. Because you may be the first one, you may have money to bring something to market, but if you don't have a community backing you, investors will look at that as well in regards to how well you can bring a community, because that community will also validate whether your idea is a good one or not. The advice that I would give to young people or anyone wanting to start a business is networking is really important, because via Women in Blockchain Talks, for example, and of course, Women in Blockchain Talks, it could be any networking event. You connect with people there and you will find people potentially who you connect with, who you have similar ways of working together, and then you will maybe connect and build a business. And that has happened many times within Women in Blockchain Talks. And just recently, there's someone who I connected with in my community nearly a year and a half ago, and we're about to start a business together. They're a tech person, so they're behind the scenes, And that is one of the hard things to find, is someone who has the skill sets that you don't have. And so I'm a front facing person, they're the back end person. And together we are, you know, it's just so easy to work with that person. And I wasn't even planning of creating a business with her, but through the networking and building the relationship, I've now easily found my business partner. And I'm so grateful for that. So networking, being consistent in your networking will help you find people who you could potentially co-found with, because sometimes you are the innovator, but you don't know how to execute technically, or you have the technical skills, but you don't have the innovation ideas. And so those are the things that you need to look at. And I think that, you know, one of the key things, if you're thinking about starting a business and you are you know, looking for someone to partner with, be intentional in the way that you network. It's not just about networking. Be intentional, ask the questions, listen to what people are saying, and then start building the relationships.
Can I jump in? 100% agree. The first thing you start in a business, you've got to be self-aware of what you're good at and understand what you're not good at, and find the person that counterbalances that, so you can actually together create a team that moves it forward. So whenever you're looking at investment, you're looking at the people. Who's the front person? Who's the back person? Who's the boring accountant that will drag the front person back when he goes too wild, which I've done many times in my career. So building balanced teams individually and convincing investors you've got a balanced team is a huge part of the early stages, because I say again, the idea is omni-important. But without the management team, people will not give you money to do it, because they will go, they're never going to make that happen. And that is the biggest weakness when you try to start a business. Not the idea. The idea is lots of good ideas out there that don't work. The combination of a good idea and a good management team is how you will raise money and how you'll be successful.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah.
We need to go to the Q&A, I'm afraid.
So unfortunately, we got dragged away with some really heated conversations. Thank you everyone for your input. I'd like everyone to give a massive round of applause for the panelists for sharing their input. Super valuable, thank you. And we'll move ahead, Emily, with...
Yeah, we go on to the Q&A, so if you've got just 5 minutes for that. So if you've got any thoughts and questions, please raise your hand.
Just going to add to that last point about startup. I spent probably almost too much time researching how to start a business, a startup, and I found Stanford eCorner. It's tons and tons of material, because they have kind of backward engineered all of the really successful they've had. If you go right back to it, you'll find like Zuckerberg way back when he was talking about making Facebook more prevalent amongst universities, and somebody said to him, have you thought about making this a bigger thing? And he said, no, give me a chance, you know, I'm still working at the university level. So they've kind of really backward engineered that you really can't want for a better resource about how to start, and you know, so they go through everything. But the only caveat I would say is that they are Silicon Valley, and where the saying is the only crime is to not try. Whereas I would say in the UK, try and get funding. You know, it's but yeah, I just wanted to chat there, Nick, because it's an amazing resource. So, and it's all free. So,
Thank you.
Sorry, I just wanted to quickly ask Neil River, if anyone who's young and has got an idea.
I don't mind old people as well.
No, well, I'm not asking for me. I'm just asking for you, for the room.
Yeah.
Because you're running an incubator.
Yeah.
Are you able to match, say, if a front person needs a tech back guy to partner with, can you put those together?
It's a fundamental what we're trying to achieve. So basically, we recruit out of universities primarily for the AI resource. We say to them, look, we'll pay you 25, 30 grand, but 1 day a week, you get to work on your idea. You've got 3 months to develop that idea for approval. And if you do get approved, 50% of your time goes on that business. And if we spin it out, you get between 10 and 40% of the business. So we're looking for that young people to bring in, but we also have to match it with more experienced people. And what we're finding is quite often it's more experienced people who come into us with ideas saying, I think we could do this in my sector, my business, but I don't know how to do it. Can you find me some AI resource? So it's not how we intended it, it's how it's working. And I think that's why the blend of having both is very, very important. Coming back to starting your own business, a couple of fundamental things. Do you all understand about SEIS and EIS investments? Yeah. If you don't, go back and research it. Basically, SEIS means that somebody can put £50,000 in, They get half of that back of their next tax bill, so they're only invested £25,000. They get 40% if it fails, so they're only risking 12.5 grand. So you can raise 50 grand with somebody risking 12.5 grand. In this country, it's the best punt money you can get. And if you're an AI, you are a punt. So therefore, always make sure you apply for SEIS from the government first, HMRC, and EIS is a slightly less generous scheme. They get a third of their money back, 30% back. The SEIS is £250,000 you can raise. If you can't start a business of that, you shouldn't be in the room. But understanding tax and understanding the stupidity of our tax laws and how you can use them is a fundamental to starting the business. Research it online. You can do it yourself. You don't need consultants. But when you're coming to me, please come to me and say, right, oh, I've got my ASS pre-approval. I've got my ISE approval. Here's my idea. Here's my business team. Will you back me? Then you've got a chance. If not, see you later.
Yeah, I mean, I started this business with £12,000, so you're absolutely right. But definitely try and get yourself a good accountant. That would be my best advice, because they are worth their weight in gold. And when you're talking about grants, subsidies, anything that's tax efficient, to give you a leg up when starting a business, I think is fundamental. So, yeah, find yourself a good accountant. I know a good one. If anyone needs a recommendation, but
I think there's a saying, isn't it? You don't know what you don't know. So always ask questions. They're never stupid.
And find, if you can, a mentor that will help you through that process. Yeah, there's plenty of people in this city that can help you with the process. So your job should be identifying those, bringing them these events and saying, right, help mentor this community. And that's something that will be very, very powerful.
Okay, we have time for just one more question.
I've really enjoyed being here. I've learned quite a fair bit, so thank you to everyone. Cornell, my boyfriend, obviously he works in blockchain and he's obviously informed me a lot about it. But I just had one question about blockchain and how, if it's going to pave a way for neo-colonialism. So obviously the global north, we've got a lot of demand for goods, and the way that the global north operates is that all of the supply comes from developing countries, for example. So luckily for us with colonialism, we've been able to tap into cheap resources in the foreign countries. So now with blockchain and AI automating everything, what do you think is going to happen if there's a drastic withdrawal on the dependency on human resources? So what are the implications when blockchain and AI is sort of pushed into developing countries? Obviously, we're talking about countries that don't even have access to A, B, C, D, E. And the whole point of the conversation is that betterment in healthcare, betterment in banking, but most of these people have never seen a laptop in their life before. You know, most people don't have enough cash to buy a bag of carrots. So what would be the implications of pushing the global north technologies into developing countries, and how would policies affect that development?
Not a simple question.
Did you
I could give an answer to an example of how, there's like a friend of mine, he's launched a company and they're enabling farmers throughout Africa to raise money, to like buy seeds, to pre-agree the prices for their crop, etc., in a transparent way, cutting out corrupt middlemen. And I think they're going to IPO for $700 million shortly. It's been very successful, and it's because everyone in Africa has got a phone, and Africa is way ahead in terms of phone banking and financial transactions than we've been in Europe. So although they might not have computers, they've got mobile internet and phones, and great things are going to happen.
My point of concern was that isn't global north the middleman, in fact, because now you've got to go to these foreign countries and sell your technology for them to be able to implement it.
No. So, I mean, what is the reason for your, sorry, I didn't mean to point, what is the reason for your question? Is it just curiosity, or is this something that you have an invested interest in?
I've got interest in policy development.
Okay.
So, well, I consider myself reckless, you know, sort of a utopia you believe. So I just want to make sure if the global north is not yet again invested in a technology that only benefits development of the global north.
Mm-hmm.
That's happened with so many revolutions in the past, with colonialism, you know, modern slavery statements, poor corporate social responsibilities across the world. So I'm just, you know, Kunal's never come back home from an event where he spoke about oh, this is what blockchain is doing for the global development. It's always been, development in the UK or the US or a startup.
So the answer to that is, at the present moment in Africa, for example, and the gentleman behind you did touch on this. So they have a young population. If you look at what's happening, there's a company or a report that came out at the end of last year, CVVC, and it was talking about the investment that is going into Africa in regards to technology. There are many young people, very bright minds, very innovative. There are a number of millionaires who are coming out of particularly Africa at the moment because they have the need for the technology. So in regards to the global north selling into the global south, it's not about that. It's about the global south building from the ground up. So there is going to be a shift, because what they're seeing is that most of the young people, most of the population is going to be from the global south, because most of the young people are there at the present moment. And so this is the reason why you're seeing Google, you're seeing Jack Dorsey from Twitter, who has gone over there to build. You're seeing a lot of the blockchain companies going over there. And don't just, the blockchain companies are not just owned by Europeans, they're owned by people who are from that part of the world as well. So there's a lot to discuss in that area.
I'm a lot less optimistic. I think the biggest fear of AI is the rich will get richer and the poor will get poorer. And unless we take action, that's going to happen. And that's a global issue, not just a UK issue. And I think you're absolutely right. It's a concern. What we do about it, I'm not quite sure. But blockchain is part of the solution, because at least it gets the banks out of the way that are ripping you off as soon as you try to change any money and send it to a country that's got a fluctuating currency. So it can add value, literally destabilizing the resource and stabilizing how we pay for it. But overall, no, I think it's a valid fear, and then we don't have a solution for it yet.
Some of the fastest growing adoption that we've seen, at least when it comes to cryptocurrencies, is in Africa and also the developing world. So in South America, El Salvador has actually adopted Bitcoin as a legal tender. So Nayib Bukele has been extremely revolutionary in this regard, and they do accept it as a form of currency, especially when it comes to countries where the currency, you'd need a truckload of cash to be able to buy a loaf of bread. That's when cryptocurrencies come into play, and also when the local banks are not trustworthy enough to be able to either manage their assets or to even allow them to set up a bank account. So in these countries, it's very much very fast developing, and there's a lot of growth.
Yeah. So I just want to quickly answer your fears. So I just completed my master's in entrepreneurship and innovation, and blockchain was actually one of the things I researched on, and it was in line with what he said. So one of the things the blockchain would do is also help with accountability. If you can track processes, we talk about colonialism, but then you've got middlemen even in those countries that are exploiting their people. So if you, for instance, get coffee from Africa, you can literally say best practices. Was it really taken through the supply chain? And then you don't get to encourage these practices. Like there was a case in Bangladesh where the big textile industry looked away from the practices in Bangladesh with the textile, and then there was a collapse of the building. The people were doing it on the So I think with the blockchain, you could also make it keeps everyone accountable in that sense. So it's not that someone is oppressing the other person. It's taking oppression away from the banks, from everything.
How much someone's paid to make that garment and make a decision. I'm not buying that because they got paid peanuts. I'll buy that brand because I can see they got a decent wage.
So we can continue this conversation in the networking area.
Yes, so everyone, we're going to have to wrap it up there. So Lavinia's just going to do a few more slides, and then we're going to move on to networking.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the event does finish at 8:30, but we can allow another extra 10 minutes for networking. So I'll just hand it over to Lavinia now.
All right, thank you so much. If you, the panelists, give them a round of applause while they take their seat. Thank you. Would you like to take a seat? John? Yeah, would you like to come down? Yeah. All right. So to wrap this up, if you've liked this event, come to the next one. We don't have a date yet. And for all the men in the room, non-binaries in the room, bring a woman, please. You know, let's bring more diversity into the space, or someone who doesn't know much about this space. We don't want to leave anyone behind. As I always like to say, spotlighting a few, creating space for all. Right, so upcoming events, we've got our Birmingham chapter tomorrow. So if you know anyone who's in Birmingham, any students, any friends, any family, let them know, tell them to come along. It's a free event. And so they just need to sign up, and there is still time. And then we have International Women's Day event, which is going to be in London on the 12th of March. It's open to everyone. So if you know anyone who's in London who you think would like to or should come to this event, please let them know. Sharing is caring. Then we also have our Blockchain Business Breakfast, which is an event that I hold on a monthly basis in the morning. And so if you are a business, Steve, and you would like to attend this and speak to other businesses in the room, to connect, to converse, to create, to share, then this is a great place to do it. We've had a lot of success and lots of connections, and business has been created from this event, which has been going for about 2 years now. And finally, on Thursday, the 7th of March, we have a co-working day, Women in Blockchain Talks office hours. It's a beautiful space. It's a Web3 space. It is in London, but if you happen to be in London in the day, or if you think there's somebody who could do with connecting with the community that is proactive and that's positive and all of that good stuff, then holla and tell them about Women in Blockchain Talks. So again, don't forget to sign up to BitGet to get your rewards. We will be sending an email out to everyone. So if you don't capture the QR code now or the link, then we will share that with you in the email. So watch out for that. Check your junk box and all of that good stuff. And if you would like to know more about Women in Blockchain Talks, again, there's another QR code because we love a QR code. And you can also connect with us on LinkedIn. Find us on LinkedIn. Find me, Amala, Women in Blockchain Talks. And we just want to say thank you once again to our sponsors, BitGet, to Quotacom, and Silicon Brighton. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us.